So spake I, and with a moan he answered me, saying, Son of Laertes, of the seed of Zeus, Odysseus of many devices, an evil doom of some god was my bane and wine out of measure. When I laid me down on the housetop of Circe, I minded me not to descend again by the way of the tall ladder, but fell right down from the roof, and my neck was broken from the bones of the spine, and my spirit went down to the house of Hades. And now I pray thee in the name of those whom we left, who are no more with us, thy wife and thy sire, who cherished thee when as yet thou wert a little one, and Telemachus. For as much as I know that on thy way hence from out the dwelling of Hades, thou wilt stay thy well-wrought ship at the isle of Aeaeon. Even then, my lord, I charge thee to think on me. Leave me not unwept and unburied as thou goest hence, nor turn thy back upon me, lest haply I bring on thee the anger of the gods. Nay, burn me there with mine armor, all that is mine, and pile me a barrow on the shore of the grey sea, the grave of a luckless man, that even men unborn may hear my story. Fulfill me this, and plant upon the barrow mine oar, wherewith I rode the days of my life, while yet I was among my fellows. Even so he spake, and I answered him, saying, All this, luckless man, will I perform for thee and do. Even so we twain were sitting holding sad discourse, I on the one side, stretching forth my sword over the blood, while on the other the ghost of my friend told all his tale. Anon came up the soul of my mother dead, Anticleia, the daughter of Autolycus, the great-hearted, whom I left alive when I departed for the sacred Ilios. At the sight of her I wept, and was moved with compassion. Yet even so, for all my sore grief, I suffered her not to draw nigh to the blood, ere I had word of Tiresias. I'm not sure if it was the short hiatus I took, or if there is just a slight hiccup in the story here. I guess I assumed Odysseus knew Elpenor had fallen accidentally to his death. Maybe not. I should probably go back and reread that moment in book 10. Whatever the case, Elpenor is responding to Odysseus, saying, How did you get here on foot faster than I got here by ship? And Elpenor says he died accidentally and found himself just transported to Hades. But more than that, I think Elpenor here is explaining the responsibility that Odysseus has to honor him in death. And as I mentioned yesterday, probably representing more than just Elpenor himself, but the idea of all fallen warriors under Odysseus from Troy all the way through his travels home. He asks Odysseus to return to the island of Circe, give him proper funeral rites. Odysseus promises to do this, and right as Elpenor's conversation with him ends, Odysseus sees another shade, as they are properly called, but this time it's his mother, Anticleia. And this is showing an interesting kind of sacrifice Odysseus is making, as we have come to, I think, understand here. The blood that they've spilled in terms of this ritual to draw the shades seems to be a limited resource, and that the shades, the ghosts, whatever you want to call them, require it in order to speak. And so this is why Odysseus is protecting it, for fear that all of the shades that have appeared, you can imagine all these ghosts probably want to give a message back to the land of the living. Odysseus is protecting it so that it doesn't dwindle before he's able to speak to Tiresias and hear the instructions on how to get home. Now, one thing, if you'll allow me a little indulgence, since we're dealing with ghosts and people who have passed, I I love ghost stories. I think you all know this about me by now. And this was really long before our current understanding of ghosts and the afterlife uh, in popular culture, that is, in literary stories. So, uh, what I find consistent is what I find interesting. Like the fact that once you have passed into whatever realm of afterlife, whether that be a idea of purgatory or here the underworld, a place where the soul continues to stir. Uh, Elpenor is essentially asking for things that the living still control. He's asking for people to mourn him. He's asking for a proper burial. He's asking for remembrance. These are all things that he and the ghost world cannot control. And considering how different the visualization of a ghost or the afterlife is here to what we've come to really expect out of like post-Victorian era literature, uh, is the same. This isn't like a entity who can walk amongst the living and affect the same things that uh, they could when they were alive. They are stuck in a place where they no longer have the autonomy or control or capabilities to affect these things anymore. And so they have to reach out to the living in order to accomplish some unfinished business. We know that phrase popularized by The Sixth Sense, but existing far before that. The fact that this idea of a liminal space where a soul or personality or whatever you want to call it exists without autonomy, living amongst centuries and cultures is really fascinating to me. I'm not smart enough to know what it says or means about the human condition, but the consistency is fascinating. Now let's turn to the Anticleia part, Odysseus's mother, because I feel like I got distracted. The fact that Odysseus is protecting this blood um, shows, I think, whether you want to interpret it as his desire to get home or his responsibility to his crew to get them home or anything in between those things, he knows that Tiresias is the only one who can give him that information. And so no one is asking him necessarily to make a sacrifice here, but Odysseus recognizes that here's a chance to speak to your own mother who has long since passed, and having the self restraint to not allow the interaction to come to fruition because it would possibly mean that you would never get home again. It's not given a whole lot of like deep psychological writing here, but if we do our little taffy thing and stretch this out, this one paragraph here: anon came the soul of my mother dead, Anticleia, daughter of Autolycus, whom I left alive when I departed for sacred Ilios. At the sight of her I wept, and was moved with compassion. Yet even so, for all my sore grief, I suffered her not to draw nigh to the blood, ere I had word of Tiresias. It's so easy to kind of just skim past all of that. But if we really slow it down and we're like, let's just picture ourselves looking at Odysseus for a moment and his attention shifting from Elpenor to another shade approaching. And as that shade approaches, the features of his mother, something, as recognizable to most people as you can possibly get, come into focus. The shock and awe that must be hitting Odysseus in that moment, his face I would imagine just kind of like losing its blood, becoming white with realization that not only is that his mother approaching, but he didn't know she was dead. So to find her here approaching amongst the shades of the underworld is him learning that his mother is dead. And you can imagine the amount of questions that would come into your mind. Not even the questions, but the things you'd want to say. What happened? How did you get here? Was there suffering? Who else is still alive? Who else is down here? How are you? Here are all the things that I never got to tell you in my life. The temptation to speak must be torturous. And I know I've taken Odysseus to task for being a potentially unreliable narrator in the past, or a self-involved one, a self-interested one, as he's telling this to Alcinous in his court. But there doesn't seem to be any ulterior motives here. I mean, unless he's trying to evoke sympathy, but I think he's accomplished that at this point, if that was his goal. So I'm curious, since that was the end of the passage today, whether or not we'll get a little bit more with Anticleia tomorrow. But if the entire involvement with his mother is restricted to this one paragraph, I mean, maybe that says something about Odysseus as well. I don't know. Sometimes it's impossible to not apply a modern lens to this. Always good to keep it. I should just put Post-it notes around my computer here saying, this is a story told through oral performance. This is 2,700 years old. Like, making sure that I'm never forgetting that, psychological depth is probably not the goal of Homer here. Okay. Join me here tomorrow as we find out whether or not Odysseus talks or sees his mother further, and if not, who else will show up. Okay, until then, goodbye. Odyssey is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. The show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Odyssey, written by Homer. Theme song by Neuroflow. You can support this show and other shows like it by going to patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.